I said at the time when they got rid of Nigel, for the reasons that they'll say were right, they should, in my opinion, the next item on the agenda of that meeting should have been to pull all the clubs back together and say, right, he's gone now. This is how we're going to move forward together, because I think together it's the only way the Championship that are going to get any meaningful TV deal is by being with the Super League clubs. Again, going back, I think we keep talking about blank canvas, blank piece of paper. I think there's got to be some really, really harsh decisions made in the next month, 2 months. And I know it's hard because we don't know when the game's going to actually be back on the field. So I guess that makes it a little bit more awkward for everyone. But I reckon they've got to decide now between the full and the part-time. I know you've mentioned this before, Phil. I think we need to split, not into Super League and Championship. We need to look at full-time and part-time. And we need to look, and maybe Sky need to be a part of this as part of a new deal. And I think we completely need to overhaul the game as it is to where we're going to be, say, in 2 years' time. And that's not to mean that Batley, Dewsbury, whoever's not in the Super League or full-time haven't got a future. Of course they have. They can be perfectly successful clubs in the Championship. They've proved that. They're well-run clubs and they're great in the community, etc. So, no, I'm not saying get rid of them. But what I'm saying is we need to focus at the top end, because if they can put together a deal that encourages Sky to put their hand in the pocket, that will ultimately be to the benefit of the clubs that are part-time. And I do think that's something we've got to look at now. I think that we keep saying, oh, this is a defining, but this is it. This is the time. I think this is it. I think this has shown us now, this dreaded coronavirus has shown a lot of people in business and in other sports can't carry on like we're carrying on. It's not working.
Well, do you think the effect of a global pandemic can actually get the fans with us on this, though? I mean, it's all right having that point of view, but we've been there with licensing, and that was very unpopular with many people who just, aside from anything, thought it was un-British, I guess, not in the British sporting culture that promotion and relegation that is sort of part of how we've always done things, certainly in the national game in football. Do you think that the current circumstances are going to be able to convince the fans of clubs like that?
I think there are three things. Firstly, you have to define who your fans are and look at your fan base. And we have an aging fan base, and we need to find some way of attracting new, younger fans. Now, that might well be in geographical areas that we're not as consistently strong as we are at the moment. That clearly is one thing. I think the other thing as well is that you look at something like the documentary that was done when Super League came. You look at the discussion on mergers. You look at the way licensing was introduced. I'm not sure it was the principles of what we were doing. It was how we communicated that. I think we made people feel excluded. And then, going back to your point about, is this the British way of doing things? What is the British way of doing things? That has to change. That you don't have to play every team home and away anymore. There are leagues that run without that. We've gone to a playoff system, which some people say, oh, it doesn't reward first past, but we've always had a Championship playoff. We have the ability to tailor the sport to what suits us. We had 31 teams in one division once. So that would be deemed ludicrous now. Things do have to change, and I genuinely think that you also have made an assumption there, which a lot of people do, that licensing and promotion and relegation is mutually exclusive. And it isn't, because licensing done properly includes an element of promotion relegation, but based on criteria and standards, which aren't just how you perform on the field. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think you can actually be a leading sport if you take that on board. One of the clubs who have coped with this crisis better than any, because they have consistently cut their cloth according to their means, is Coventry Bears. And whilst they are really struggling not being able to put on the sport that they love in the arena that they'd like to with the players that they've signed up, they are not suffering any material financial loss at the moment, because their model, which has actually been referenced by how Saracens are going to be reformed and how Richmond are going to play in rugby union next year, it is an economic model that works. And if at some point you can say to them, if your economic model works and you can improve your standards on the field, there is a place for you in Super League, and it's not merely contingent upon whether you are the best community team or championship team or not, then you can have promotion relegation. It's just how you go about doing it. I think closing a trapdoor is wrong, but having standards is absolutely right.
It's a huge leap, though, isn't it, Phil? Paying your players 50 quid a week like they do at Coventry to run in a Super League operation. We've got to bear that in mind. But I also want to do, and we all fully support Coventry and what they're doing and how they're building the club. But are we too worried about what 600 fans that may watch a championship team once every fortnight are going to kick off? You get all these people coming out of the woodwork that have never been to a game in the championship. And also, for those clubs in the championship, particularly those at the bottom, would they not get more fans if they actually had a chance of winning the division rather than every other week they're playing a team that's got a budget 12 times bigger than they've got? And therefore, what's the point in even you're really there to exist and just give someone a game every 3 months? What's the point in that? So I do think we need to be a little bit more ruthless, and I think the people that run their clubs properly would welcome the chance to be able to win something. Well, you would imagine they'd welcome the chance to be able to win something, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. I think this value for money principle, which is insisted upon by government giving us this bailout anyway, will affect every single sport. I think, Paul will be seeing it in some of the Northwest football clubs at the moment. I think that rugby union, again, we're not comparing ourselves with anybody. They are undergoing this exact same exercise of saying, we've made some real mistakes over the last 10 years, and just calling yourself a professional club is actually a millstone around your neck if you can't be that. And racking up debt is to the detriment of your fans, because if you end up like a Bolton Wanderers or a Bury, no matter who is in charge, the problem is that if you are spending beyond your means to attain something that isn't attainable, would you rather have a club that you can support and as you say, a chance to win something reasonable and reliable in amongst the clubs that you are equal to, or every so often do you want to touch the sun and burn and then either have to start again in Division 7 or never come back?
Yeah. Isn't part of our problem as well, though, there's a sort of imbalance between teams who have the ambition and the potential, I guess, to be top flight teams and teams that don't, and that really probably should be.
Is that not the full-time, part-time split though, Paul? If I would imagine if you looked at Lee, they've got the ambition to be a full-time team. With potential, I don't know.
I'm just saying, even within the part-time split at the minute, in the championship, it's pretty much all part-time league. But you've got a split between them. Clubs who like Widnes or Featherstone are thinking, you push for promotion, or Lee or Bradford, and others who are thinking, well, we're just businesses. About serving the community, about what represents this area and about survival. So but
unless they've got the finance in place to be full time, and that's not for 1 year, that's not just getting promoted. That is a sustainable business plan that says for the next 5 years, our ownership group or the guy who's backing us, or the shareholders we're going to get, be they even including some of the supporters, are prepared to guarantee X million £1 a year for the next 5 years. You can't be deemed to be a Super League team.
No, I agree. But what I'm saying is, I guess there's below the top 12 that we currently have, there's not quite enough the next standard of teams to have a sort of level of competition that they would need to be able to develop into a top flight team. I don't think there's a bit of a divide there between the top of the championship and the rest. And I guess if you're talking about redrawing the league, and how we're going to emerge from this, it's harder to break the news of the return of licensing to the clubs at the top than it is at the bottom, who are a little bit more realistic about their position, perhaps.
A sport for the many and not the few, to misquote Jeremy Corbyn.